Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if losing everything wasn't your failure, but your invitation? Most people are afraid of starting from zero because zero feels like humiliation, like proof that you weren't good enough, like the world was right about you. But here's the truth, no one tells you zero is the only place where reinvention is possible. When you have nothing to protect, nothing to impress, nothing to pretend, you finally have the freedom to build something real. If you stay with me until the end of this speech, you won't just learn how to rebuild your life, you'll understand why starting from zero might be the most powerful advantage you'll ever have. Rebuilding begins with honesty, and honesty is rarely comfortable. It asks you to look at your life without filters, without stories that protect your ego, and without explanations that make you feel better but keep you stuck. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they refuse to tell themselves the truth. They soften it, they decorate it, they turn it into a story where they are always the victim and never the participant. But rebuilding from zero demands something stronger than comfort. It demands clarity. Honesty means stripping away excuses. Excuses are attractive because they sound logical. They give you reasons, they give you context, they give you someone or something to point at. The economy was bad, the system was unfair, the people around me didn't support me. And sometimes these things are true. The world is unfair, people do betray you, systems do fail. But here is the hard truth, even when those things are real, they are not useful. They don't move you forward. They don't give you leverage. They only give you explanations, and explanations without ownership become cages. When you live inside excuses, you may feel justified, but you also feel powerless. Self-pity is even more dangerous because it feels like healing when it is actually hiding. Self-pity whispers, you've been through too much, you deserve rest, you deserve sympathy. And rest is important, but self-pity doesn't help you recover. It helps you remain. It keeps you stuck in the story of what happened instead of focused on what happens next. When rebuilding is needed, self-pity delays action. It convinces you that understanding your pain is the same as overcoming it. It is not. Understanding is the beginning. Responsibility is the bridge. Blame is the final trap, and it is the most seductive one. Blame gives you an enemy. It gives your pain a direction. It tells you exactly who or what ruined your life: a boss, a partner, a friend, a government, a moment. And again, sometimes those things truly did harm you, but blaming them gives them something: they no longer deserve control over your future. The moment you say, they ruined my life, you also say, they control whether I can rebuild it. And that is a dangerous position to live in because it places your power in someone else's hands. Truth is quieter than excuses, self-pity, or blame. Truth doesn't shout, it doesn't defend itself. It simply stands there and waits for you to face it. The truth may say, I ignored the warning signs. I stayed too long. It may say, I avoided responsibility when it was uncomfortable. It may even say, I knew better, but I chose easier. These are not easy truths to accept because they bruise the ego. They challenge the image you have of yourself, but they do something no excuse ever can. They give you back your agency. You don't rebuild your life by asking, who ruined my life? Because that question looks backward and searches for villains. It keeps you anchored to the past. It keeps the wound open. Instead, rebuilding starts with a different question, a quieter one, a braver one. What part of this is mine to own? That question does not deny what others did. It simply refuses to let their actions define the rest of your story. It shifts your focus from blame to responsibility, from history to possibility. Ownership is not punishment, even though it feels like it at first. Many people avoid ownership because they think it means accepting guilt for everything that went wrong. It doesn't. Ownership means recognizing where you had influence, where you had choice, and where you still do. It means separating what happened to you from how you responded to it. It means understanding that while you may not be responsible for the storm, you are responsible for how you rebuild after it. Ownership is power because it restores choice. The moment you say, this part is mine, you also say, this part is within my control. And control, even in small amounts, changes everything. When you own your decisions, you can change your decisions. When you own your habits, you can change your habits. When you own your patterns, you can interrupt them. Without ownership, change feels impossible. With ownership, change becomes inevitable. Taking responsibility does not mean being harsh with yourself. It means being honest with yourself. There is a difference. Harshness says, I am broken. Honesty says, I am human and I can learn. Harshness keeps you frozen in shame. Honesty moves you forward with clarity. Rebuilding from zero requires compassion, but not the kind that excuses inaction. It requires the kind that tells you the truth because it believes you are strong enough to handle it. Even taking responsibility for things that hurt you can feel unfair. You might say, why should I own something that caused me pain? Because ownership is not about fault, it is about freedom. You don't take responsibility because you deserve blame. You take responsibility because you deserve a future. When you own your response to pain, you stop being defined by it. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop needing closure from people who cannot give it. You create your own closure through action. The moment you take responsibility, something subtle but powerful happens. You regain control, not over the past, but over the next step. Control over how you speak to yourself. Control over what you tolerate. Control over the standards you set going forward. Control over the direction, even if the pace is slow. And that control builds confidence, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you are no longer avoiding the truth. Rebuilding from zero is not about pretending nothing went wrong. It is about refusing to let what went wrong be the final word. And that refusal begins with honesty. Real honesty, the kind that looks in the mirror and doesn't look away. The kind that says, this is where I am. This is what happened. This is what I own. From that place, rebuilding is no longer a fantasy. It becomes a responsibility you are finally ready to carry. When everything collapses, one question remains, and it is quieter than panic and deeper than fear. It is not about how fast you can recover, how much you can regain. It is simply this: why do you want to rebuild at all? When the noise fades and the distractions disappear, this question waits for you. You can ignore it for a while, but if you try to rebuild without answering it, everything you build will eventually collapse again. Because rebuilding without purpose is just movement, and movement without meaning does not last. Most people think they are rebuilding for obvious reasons. Money is usually the first answer. They want financial security, comfort, and relief from stress. Money matters, but it is a weak foundation when things get hard. There will be days when progress is slow, when effort is invisible, when the numbers do not move in your favor. On those days, money is not enough to get you out of bed. It cannot remind you who you are. It cannot tell you why the struggle is worth enduring. Money is a tool, not a reason, and when it becomes the reason, motivation fades the moment the reward feels distant. Status is another common answer. The desire to be seen, respected, and admired is deeply human. After failure or loss, the urge to reclaim your image can be powerful. You want to show the world that you are still capable, still relevant, still successful. But rebuilding to impress others is exhausting. It ties your progress to opinions you cannot control. On hard days, when no one is watching and no one is applauding, status offers no comfort. It demands results but gives no strength. When your identity depends on external validation, every setback feels personal and every delay feels like defeat. Then there is the need to prove someone wrong. A former boss, a partner, a critic, a voice that once told you that you were not enough. This reason feels strong at first. It fuels late nights and sharp focus. But anger is a short-term fuel. Eventually it burns out, and when it does, you are left building a life around someone else's opinion. Even success feels empty when it is shaped by resentment. You may reach the goal, but you will realize too late that you never chose it for yourself. These reasons do not survive the hard days. And there will be hard days. Days when progress feels invisible. Days when you question your decisions. Days when rebuilding feels heavier than starting over. On those days, superficial reasons collapse under pressure. Only one thing remains strong enough to carry you forward, and that is meaning. You rebuild for meaning. Meaning gives pain a context. It tells you that discomfort is not random and that struggle is not wasted. Meaning answers the question, what is this for? It does not remove difficulty, but it changes how difficulty feels. Pain without meaning feels unbearable. Pain with meaning feels necessary. It becomes part of the journey. Instead of a sign that you are on the wrong path, you rebuild for contribution. Not just what you can gain, but what you can give. When everything falls apart, it becomes clear how deeply connected we are to others. Your rebuilding is not only about you. It is about the people who will benefit from your growth, your discipline, your example. Contribution shifts your focus outward. It reminds you that your effort matters beyond your own comfort. When you know that your work can help inspire or protect others, quitting becomes harder. Giving up no longer affects only you. It affects the people you have not met yet, the people who will one day need the strength you are building now. You rebuild for the person you are becoming. This is the deepest why of all. Rebuilding is not just about restoring what was lost. It is about evolving into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded. The person you are becoming is shaped by how you respond to collapse. Every choice you make in this phase is a vote for your future identity. Do you become someone who avoids discomfort or someone who grows through it? Do you become someone who repeats patterns or someone who breaks them? This version of you is watching every decision you make, and that awareness changes how you show up. When your why is clear, pain becomes bearable. Not because it disappears, because it has a direction. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this preparing me for? Pain becomes information. It teaches you where you need to grow, what you need to strengthen, and what you need to let go of. Instead of fighting discomfort, you learn from it. Instead of resenting struggle, you respect it. Struggle becomes purposeful when it is connected to your why. Purpose does not make the road easier, but it makes it meaningful. Every early morning, every lonely decision, every moment of doubt becomes part of a larger story. You are no longer just trying to survive. You are building something that aligns with who you are and what you value. Purpose turns effort into intention. It turns sacrifice into investment. Without a clear why, rebuilding feels like punishment. With a clear why, it feels like preparation. You stop measuring progress only by results and start measuring it by alignment. Are your actions reflecting your values? Are your choices shaping the person you want to become? This shift changes everything. You no longer chase motivation, you rely on commitment. Motivation fluctuates, but commitment rooted in purpose remains steady. Your why does not have to be dramatic or grand. It does not need to impress anyone else. It only needs to be true. It might be about living with integrity. It might be about creating stability for your family. It might be about proving to yourself that you can rise again with honesty and discipline. Whatever it is, it must be strong enough to hold you when everything else feels uncertain. Rebuilding from zero is not just a physical or financial process, it is an internal one. And at the center of that process is your why. When you rediscover it, you stop wandering, you stop reacting, you start moving with intention. And from that place, even the hardest days become steps forward, not signs to turn back. This is the part most people resist, not because it is complicated, but because it is personal. Letting go of who you used to be feels like betrayal. It feels like admitting that the effort, the sacrifices, and the identity you carried for so long no longer apply. We hold on to old versions of ourselves because they are familiar. Even when they no longer serve us, they feel safe. Familiar pain often feels more comfortable than unfamiliar growth. You cannot rebuild your future while clinging to your past identity, because identity shapes behavior. The way you see yourself determines the choices you make, the risks you take, and the limits you accept. If you keep thinking like the person you were, you will keep creating the same outcomes, even in new circumstances. A new environment cannot produce a new result if the same internal story is running in the background. Rebuilding requires more than changing what you do. It requires changing who you believe you are, who you were worked until it didn't. That is not failure. That is evolution. Every version of you was built for a specific season of your life. The habits you formed, the mindset you adopted, and the identity you embraced helped you survive and succeed at that time. But seasons change. What once protected you can later limit you. What once motivated you can later exhaust you. Holding on to an outdated identity is like using an old map in a new city. It is not wrong, it is just no longer useful. Rebuilding from zero requires the courage to say, I am not that person anymore. This sentence is difficult because it challenges the stories you have told yourself and others. It challenges the labels people have attached to you. It challenges expectations. And yet, it is one of the most honest statements you can make. It does not erase your past, it acknowledges your growth. It says that you are allowed to change without apologizing for it. Many people fear that letting go of their old identity means admitting they failed. But growth and failure are not the same thing. Failure is refusing to adapt when reality demands change. Growth is recognizing when a chapter has ended and choosing not to reread it out of comfort. You did not fail because you outgrew an old version of yourself. You matured. You learned. You became more aware. That awareness is not something to hide from, it is something to honor. Defending an old version of yourself is exhausting. It requires constant justification. You find yourself explaining why you still think the same way, why you still act the same way, why you still chase the same outcomes, even when they no longer align with who you are becoming. This defense keeps you stuck in arguments with the past instead of building the future. The energy you spend protecting an outdated identity could be used to create a new one. Reinvention begins the moment you stop defending that old version. When you stop saying, this is just how I am, and start asking, who do I need to become now? Reinvention is not about pretending to be someone else. It is about uncovering the parts of you that were buried under expectations, habits, and fear. It is about allowing yourself to change without needing permission from the past. Letting go of who you used to be also means letting go of the expectations tied to that identity. People may struggle with your change because it disrupts their understanding of you. They may remind you of who you were, what you used to do, and what they think you should still want. This resistance can be confusing, especially when it comes from people you care about. But their discomfort is not a signal that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are changing the pattern. The past version of you may have been driven by survival, approval, or fear. The new version of you is driven by intention. That shift changes everything. You no longer react automatically. You respond consciously. You no longer repeat patterns out of habit. You choose behaviors based on values. This level of awareness can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes excuses. You cannot hide behind identity anymore. You are responsible for who you are becoming. Letting go does not mean forgetting. You carry the lessons with you. You carry the wisdom, the resilience, and the insight gained from every experience. What you release is the attachment to the role you played, not the knowledge you earned. The past becomes a teacher, not a definition. It informs your choices without limiting them. Rebuilding from zero often feels like standing in empty space, without labels, without certainty, without a clear identity to lean on. This uncertainty is not a weakness. It is potential. When you are no longer tied to who you were, you are free to choose who you will be. That freedom can feel overwhelming, but it is also empowering. You are no longer reacting to life. You are designing your response to it. The moment you stop defending the old version of yourself, you create room for growth. You stop arguing with reality and start aligning with it. You stop proving and start becoming. And in that space, reinvention is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that happens naturally, one honest decision at a time. People think rebuilding means massive action. They imagine dramatic moves, bold decisions, and visible changes that announce to the world that they're starting over. They believe that if the action is not big, it does not count. But rebuilding does not begin with a breakthrough. It begins with a pattern. And patterns are built through small actions repeated consistently over time. The truth is, massive action without consistency is just noise. It looks impressive for a moment, but it does not last. Rebuilding is quieter than people expect. It happens in moments no one applauds. It happens in the decision to wake up on time even when you feel tired and unmotivated. It happens when you keep a small promise to yourself, not because it will change everything today, but because it reminds you that your word still matters. These actions may seem insignificant, but they are not. They are signals. And the most important person receiving those signals is you. When your life collapses, trust in yourself collapses with it. You start doubting your judgment, your discipline, and your ability to follow through. That loss of trust is more damaging than the external loss itself. Rebuilding, therefore, is not about proving anything to the world. It is about rebuilding that internal trust. And trust is not rebuilt through grand gestures. It is rebuilt through reliability. Through doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. Small promises kept daily are the foundation of change. Not promises about who you will be someday, but promises about what you will do today. You promise to wake up at a certain time and you do it. You promise to complete a task and you finish it. You promise to show up and you show up. Each fulfilled promise sends a quiet message to your mind: I can rely on myself again. That message, repeated enough times, becomes belief. Doing one hard thing each day is part of this process. Not a dramatic challenge, but something slightly uncomfortable, something that requires effort, focus, or discipline. Hard things build resilience. They remind you that discomfort is not a threat, it is a training ground. When you face small difficulties regularly, larger challenges lose their power to intimidate you. You stop waiting to feel ready. You act because action itself becomes familiar. Consistency rebuilds confidence, not the loud confidence that seeks attention, but the steady confidence that comes from evidence. You are no longer telling yourself that you are capable. You are proving it one action at a time. Confidence built this way is durable because it is rooted in experience, not emotion. It does not disappear when motivation fades or when circumstances change. It remains because it is supported by a record of follow-through. Confidence rebuilds identity. Identity is not what you say about yourself, it is what your behavior confirms. When you consistently act with discipline, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop identifying as someone who tries and start identifying as someone who does. This shift is subtle but powerful. Your standards rise naturally because you no longer want to break the trust you have rebuilt with yourself. You become more intentional, not out of pressure, but out of respect for who you are becoming. Identity rebuilds life. The way you see yourself influences every area of your life. Your work improves because you show up consistently. Your relationships strengthen because your word carries weight. Your health improves because small, repeated choices compound. None of these changes happen overnight, but they happen inevitably when identity shifts. Life changes not because you forced it to, but because you became someone who lives differently. Many people wait for momentum before they start. They tell themselves they will act when they feel inspired, confident, or ready. But momentum does not create action. Action creates momentum. Waiting only deepens doubt. Starting small breaks that cycle. It removes the pressure to be perfect and replaces it with the requirement to be consistent. You do not need to feel motivated to keep a small promise. You just need to decide. Trust in yourself is rebuilt when your actions become predictable in the best way. When you stop surprising yourself with excuses and start surprising yourself with discipline. This trust changes how you approach challenges. You no longer question whether you will show up. You simply focus on how. That certainty is calming. It reduces anxiety because you are no longer negotiating with yourself at every step. Starting small also protects you from burnout. Massive action often relies on emotional energy, which is unstable. Small actions rely on structure, which is sustainable. Structure removes the need for constant decision-making. It turns effort into routine. And routine, when aligned with your values, becomes freedom. You are no longer pushing yourself every day. You are following a system you trust. Rebuilding from zero is not about speed. It is about direction and reliability. Each small action is a brick. One brick does not look like a house, but placed consistently, it becomes one. You may not see the results immediately, but they are forming beneath the surface. Progress is happening even when it feels invisible. You do not need momentum to begin. You need trust. Trust that if you take a small today, you will take another tomorrow. Trust that consistency will carry you when motivation disappears. Trust that your future self is being shaped by the decisions you make now. And that trust begins the moment you start keeping small promises to yourself again. Confidence doesn't come first. Discipline does. This truth challenges the way most people think about change. We are taught to wait until we feel ready, motivated, or confident before we act. We are told to trust our feelings to move when inspiration strikes. But rebuilding yourself from zero does not work that way. When your life has been shaken, feelings are unreliable. Motivation comes and goes. Confidence disappears the moment you face resistance. If you wait for confidence, you may wait forever. Discipline steps in where confidence cannot. Discipline does not ask how you feel. It asks what needs to be done. It is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, repetitive, and often invisible. And that is why it works. Discipline allows progress to continue even when enthusiasm fades. It creates movement when emotions stall. In moments when you doubt yourself the most, discipline becomes the structure that carries you forward. You don't feel ready, then act. You act, then feel ready. Readiness is a result, not a requirement. Every time you take action despite uncertainty, your nervous system learns that you can survive discomfort. Each completed task, no matter how small, becomes evidence that you are capable. Over time, that evidence accumulates. Confidence begins to grow not from imagination, but from experience. It becomes grounded and stable because it is earned. Rebuilding yourself means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. This is where true change happens. When there is no audience, no reward, and no recognition, discipline reveals who you are becoming. It is easy to perform when others are paying attention. It is harder to show up when your effort goes unnoticed. But it is in those unseen moments that character is built. Those moments define your standards more than any public success ever could. Discipline also means doing the right thing when it is boring. Boredom is one of the greatest threats to consistency. The mind craves novelty and excitement, and when progress feels repetitive, it is tempting to quit or chase something new. But rebuilding requires patience. It requires the willingness to repeat simple actions day after day without immediate feedback. Boredom is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are doing the work consistently enough for it to feel routine. There will be times when discipline feels pointless, when results are slow, when effort does not seem to match outcomes, when you question whether any of it matters. These moments test your commitment. Discipline in these moments is an act of faith, not blind faith, but faith in the process. You may not see the results today, but you trust that the work is shaping you in ways that will matter tomorrow. This trust is what separates those who rebuild from those who repeat the cycle. Discipline is not punishment. It is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about alignment. It is choosing actions that reflect your values rather than your impulses. When you act with discipline, you are telling yourself that your long-term growth matters more than short-term comfort. This message, repeated daily, changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who reacts and start identifying as someone who chooses. Discipline creates predictability in your behavior. That predictability builds safety within yourself. You begin to trust that you will show up even on difficult days. This trust reduces internal conflict. You no longer debate whether to act. You simply act. This simplicity frees mental energy. It allows you to focus on improvement rather than negotiation with yourself. Life becomes less chaotic because your responses become consistent. Over time, discipline reshapes your self-image. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This identity is powerful. It influences your decisions without force. You naturally avoid choices that contradict the person you are becoming. You raise your standards not because you are chasing perfection, but because you respect yourself too much to settle for inconsistency. This respect is quiet, but it is firm. Confidence eventually emerges from this foundation. It is not the fragile confidence based on praise or success. It is the steady confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. You trust your ability to handle discomfort, to adapt, and to persist. This confidence does not disappear when circumstances change because it is rooted in behavior, not outcomes. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the way you demonstrate to yourself that you matter. Every disciplined choice is a statement that your future is worth the effort. When you act with discipline, you are not denying yourself joy. You are investing in a deeper form of satisfaction, one that comes from growth and integrity. Over time, this investment compounds, shaping a life built not on fleeting motivation, but on consistent intentional action. Your environment is rebuilding you, even if you are not aware of it. Long before motivation, discipline, or confidence come into play, your surroundings are shaping your behavior. The signals you receive every day quietly influence how you think, what you believe is possible, and what you accept as normal. This influence is subtle, which is why it is so powerful. You may believe you are making independent choices, but many of those choices are simply responses to the environment you have placed yourself in. The people you listen to matter more than most realize. Their words become background noise in your mind. Over time, that noise turns into internal dialogue. If the people around you constantly complain, criticize, or dwell on limitations, your thinking will begin to mirror theirs. Not because you agree with them consciously, but because repetition creates familiarity. Familiar thoughts feel true, even when they are not. Rebuilding yourself from zero requires awareness of this process, because you cannot grow beyond the conversations that dominate your life. The content you consume is just as influential. What you watch, read, and scroll through feeds your mind long before you act. Content can expand your perspective or shrink it. It can remind you of what is possible or reinforce what feels comfortable. When you are rebuilding, your mind is more impressionable than usual. Old beliefs have been shaken, and new ones are forming. In this fragile stage, careless consumption can undo progress faster than a bad decision. Every piece of content is a signal telling you who you are and what matters. The conversations you tolerate are another form of input. Not every conversation needs to be inspiring, but every conversation shapes your emotional state. Some conversations drain energy, reinforce doubt, and keep you tied to the past. Others challenge you, ground you, and push you forward. Tolerating conversations that pull you backward is often an act of habit, not intention. You stay silent, not along, or participate because it feels easier than setting boundaries. But rebuilding requires intention, and intention means choosing what you allow into your mental space. Rebuilding from zero means upgrading your inputs. You cannot expect new outcomes while feeding your mind the same signals that led to old patterns. This is not about perfection or isolation. It is about alignment. It is about making sure that what surrounds you supports who you are becoming. When your inputs change, your thoughts change. When your thoughts change, your behavior follows. This chain reaction happens whether you plan for it or not. The only question is whether you are guiding it or ignoring it. Upgrading your inputs may require uncomfortable choices. It may mean spending less time with people who once felt familiar. It may mean saying no to conversations that revolve around negativity or regret. It may mean limiting exposure to content that entertains but does not elevate. These choices can feel lonely at first because they disrupt routines. But loneliness is often a temporary side effect of growth. It is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Not everyone deserves access to the new you. This statement is not about arrogance or judgment. It is about protection. When you are rebuilding, you are vulnerable. Old influences can easily pull you back into old patterns. Some people are attached to the version of you that required less effort from them. They may resist your change, not out of malice, but out of familiarity. Their expectations can pressure you to remain who you were. Limiting access during this phase is not rejection, it is self-respect. Choosing the right signals means intentionally seeking environments that reflect your future, not your past. This could mean listening to voices that challenge your thinking instead of confirming your fears. It could mean reading ideas that stretch you rather than soothe you. It could mean surrounding yourself with people who value growth, honesty, and accountability. These signals remind you daily of the direction you are moving in. They normalize effort. They make discipline feel expected rather than extreme. Over time, the right signals reshape your identity. You begin to internalize higher standards without force. You adopt new language, new habits, and new expectations because they are reinforced by your environment. This shift feels natural because it is supported. You are no longer fighting against your surroundings, you are working with them. Progress becomes less about willpower and more about alignment. Environment also affects what you believe you deserve. When you are surrounded by growth-oriented signals, you start to believe that improvement is normal. You stop seeing effort as punishment and start seeing it as investment. This belief changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of questioning your worth, you focus on solutions. Instead of feeling isolated, you feel part of a larger process of becoming. Choosing signals that remind you of who you are becoming is a daily practice. It is not a one-time decision. Each day presents opportunities to reinforce or weaken your direction. Small choices accumulate, a conversation avoided, a podcast chosen, a boundary set. These actions may seem insignificant in isolation, but together they create an environment that supports your rebuilding. Your environment will rebuild you whether you are conscious of it or not. The only real choice you have is whether it rebuilds you intentionally or by default. When you choose signals aligned with your future, you reduce resistance. Growth feels less forced because it is constantly reinforced. And in that alignment, rebuilding from zero becomes not just possible, but sustainable. Your pain is not a weakness, even though it may feel like one. Pain has a way of convincing you that something is wrong with you, that you are broken, or that you fell behind while others move forward. But pain is not evidence of inadequacy. It is evidence of experience. It means you tried, you cared, you risked something that mattered. And in rebuilding yourself from zero, this pain is not something to erase or escape. It is something to understand and eventually use. Pain is training. It sharpens awareness in ways comfort never can. When things fall apart, you are forced to pay attention. You notice patterns you once ignored. You see truths you once avoided. You become more honest with yourself because denial no longer works. This heightened awareness is not accidental. It is part of growth. Pain slows you down just enough to make learning unavoidable. It teaches you where your limits were, where your assumptions failed, and where your values were tested. Every setback gave you insight, even if it did not feel that way at the time. Setbacks reveal what matters by showing you what hurts when it is threatened or lost. They expose weak systems, unrealistic expectations, and misaligned priorities. Insight gained through pain is deeper than insight gained through success because it is earned under pressure. It stays with you. It shapes future decisions in ways that logic alone cannot. You may not be able to articulate it immediately, but it becomes part of your intuition. Every failure gave you empathy. Failure humbles you. It strips away the illusion that success is simple or guaranteed. When you have failed, you stop judging others so quickly. You understand that effort does not always equal outcome and that good intentions do not always lead to good results. This understanding softens you. It makes you more patient, more compassionate, and more human. Empathy born from failure is not theoretical, it is lived. It allows you to connect with others in a way that success alone never could. Every loss gave you perspective. Loss forces you to reevaluate what you value. It reveals what is essential and what was simply noise. When something important is taken away, you become more aware of time, energy, and attention. You learn that not everything deserves equal importance. Perspective gained through loss is clarifying. It helps you focus on what truly matters, not what once seemed urgent. This clarity is a gift, even though it arrives wrapped in grief. One day, your story will become someone else's survival guide. This is not a metaphor. People learn best from those who have been where they are. Advice from experience carries a weight that theory cannot match. When you share your journey honestly, including the pain and the mistakes, you give others permission to be human. You show them that falling apart is not the end of the story. You offer hope not by pretending everything is perfect, but by showing that rebuilding is possible. Rebuilding not just for yourself changes the meaning of your struggle. When the focus shifts from personal recovery to collective benefit, pain becomes purposeful. You are no longer just trying to escape discomfort, you are transforming it into something useful. This shift does not happen overnight. It emerges gradually as you heal and gain distance from the experience. But once it happens, it changes how you carry your past. The pain no longer defines you, it informs you. Serving others through your journey does not require a platform or recognition. It begins in small moments. Listening without judgment, offering understanding instead of advice, sharing lessons when asked. Your presence alone can be grounding for someone who feels lost. When you have walked through pain, you recognize it in others. You know when to speak and when to stay silent. This sensitivity is not accidental. It is the result of what you endured. Purpose does not eliminate pain, but it redeems it. It gives suffering a direction. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask, "How can this help someone else?" This question transforms your relationship with the past. You stop seeing pain as a detour and start seeing it as preparation. The experiences you once wished away become the foundation of your strength. Turning pain into purpose also strengthens your commitment to rebuilding. When your effort is tied to something larger than yourself, quitting becomes harder. You are no longer just accountable to your own comfort. You are accountable to the impact your growth can have. This sense of responsibility is not heavy, it is motivating. It reminds you that your journey matters beyond personal success. Purpose emerges when you integrate pain rather than suppress it. Ignoring pain keeps it active beneath the surface. Integrating it allows it to inform your choices without controlling them. You acknowledge what happened, learn from it, and carry the lessons forward. This integration creates coherence. Your past, present, and future align. You are no longer running from your story. You are using it. Pain transforms